friends. I'm your host, Dr. Dave Layton, and thank you for joining me in our journey to hope. It is my desire through this podcast to bring you information about how to discover, sustain, or perhaps regain hope. In this episode, I'm speaking with Kristi Horner. Kristi is the founder and executive director of Courage to Caregivers, and I really like that title. And I'll let her tell us about herself and about her organization. Hello, Kristi.
Hello, Dave. Great to be with you.
Well, thank you for your time. You are a busy woman. Uh, you have two titles, founder and executive director, and I understand that. Well, let's begin by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and then the organization, Courage to Caregivers.
Absolutely. Yes, Courage to Caregivers exists. We are based here in Cleveland, Ohio, and yet we support unpaid family caregivers to those living with behavioral health needs throughout the U.S. and Canada. We do that through three different programs. We have what we call prevention groups. And so those are more like group coaching sessions, not necessarily a traditional support group where someone would come in, share about their loved one's diagnosis, and you would spend some time talking about that and what's hard. We focus on preventing a behavioral health diagnosis within the caregiver because sometimes the fact that you're caring for someone else with a chronic inconsistent illness can actually cause things like depression, anxiety, and PTSD within the caregiver. So we're here to prevent that. We're actually trying to prevent caregiver burnout. We also do suicide prevention work. We do that through Question, Persuade, Refer, QPR classes. We also have certified family peer support. That is by state, governed and licensed, et cetera, by state. And so in the state of Ohio, it's a license that allows us to use my lived experience in caring for someone with behavioral health needs to care for another caregiver of those with behavioral health needs. And while I'm not a clinician in any way, and this is not a clinical service, it's true peer support, but it's called family peer support. We do that through groups as well as individual or one-to-one format, depending on what the caregiver's interested in. We also have 4 years worth of breathing meditation content on our YouTube channel. We used to offer that program live, but our numbers started to dwindle, and we have saved all that beautiful content on our YouTube. Basically, we've helped hundreds of caregivers learn how to breathe and to use that breath because it is the most portable, sustainable form of self-care that we know, and it's with us all the time. So that's a little bit about what we do as an organization. We're in both prevention work, but we're also in recovery work, which is the family peer support. We do lots of other little things like book clubs and holiday meetups and one-on-one sessions. We also do trainings and presentations for continuing education credits to work with professional caregivers because it's really the same burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And we need those professional caregivers to remain strong and retain good talent in our social service agencies. So we're there to help retain that good staff in the name of supporting the caregivers they support as well with tools and resources.
Having gone through a health crisis myself, and we were talking earlier, I went through leukemia care, and I was in clinical treatment for a year. And then, of course, it's lingered on after that. But caregivers, my wife particularly as a family caregiver, was incredibly important to me, as were the professional people, obviously. Now, I went through it during the COVID time, and we were not allowed in the cancer center during treatment time to have a family member or anyone else really with us. It had to be just the professional staff. But now we're able to have family, at least one, in the area. I volunteer at the cancer center where I was treated, and I love our caregivers. When I am going around as a volunteer helping the patients, I pay real close attention to the
Mm,
caregivers because they are just so incredibly important. And the things
mhm.
you've outlined and what you offer, I deeply appreciate it as a caregiver and as someone who received it. So um, I'm going to get a little bit later. I want to talk about the Facebook page, the web page, and the YouTube, and some other resources you might have. But how long has the Courage to Caregivers, excuse me, been in operation?
Right. So, and this all came about because I was caring for my brother who lived with anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, as well as suicidal ideation. And that's where, in that moment, I went from just a sister, just a daughter, just a partner, just a mom to an unpaid family caregiver because it exceeded the typical relationship in any of
Hmm.
those identities or hats that I wore. And providing him mental and emotional support, being that primary caregiver for him during some four difficult years, really is what launched me into this caregiving role. And my sisters as well. And what we realized, he lost his battle with mental illness to suicide in 2014. And what we realized in that moment was that there's a lot of support for the person with the long-term illness. And in this case, mental illness is really chronic, inconsistent illness. And caring for someone with a chronic, inconsistent illness constitutes trauma. And I didn't know that at the time. And I'm like, oh, if someone had just told me that might have made more sense of the way I was feeling in my body, in my head, in my heart, in all the different ways. And so we set about saying someone needs to be caring for the caregiver. And I wasn't really looking to, I'm not entrepreneurial by any stretch of the means. And I was really hoping to put my time and energy as your cancer center volunteer. I was hoping to put my energy around an agency that was doing this good work already. And yet no one was really doing it the way I had a vision for doing it that was very different than a typical traditional support group. So, but every time I talk to someone, they're like, but great idea. I think you should go for it. So by golly, didn't I become a social entrepreneur in my mid 50s? We incorporated in 2016. And then we formed a board. We went about raising money. Then we did a needs assessment. Then we did focus groups about proposed program models. Then wrote a business plan. We narrowed in our proposed program models to three. We decided to, with the help of the startup funds, fund these three different unique pilots and launched our first pilot in November of 18.
Okay.
And then spent that one first year in a traditional pilot in-person programming in Cleveland, on one on the east side of Cleveland and one on the west side of Cleveland. And by golly, didn't COVID affect us too? And
Yeah.
it kept all caregivers at home with their loved ones, which became very difficult.
Very difficult.
And overnight, on March 13th, 2020, literally overnight, we launched a virtual presence and grew by 300%
Hmm.
based on the need, the significant mental health needs that COVID presented, the uncertainty, all the challenges that came with that level of caregiving. And people were homeschooling and working from home and caring from home. And so completely changed our program model and then suddenly opened our doors to didn't matter where you lived. If you were in need, we were there to support you. And so suddenly became a national nonprofit with a virtual presence overnight. I didn't have a Zoom
Wow.
account. Like this, all this felt very fancy 5 years ago.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So here we
yeah.
are.
And I appreciate you doing all that because one of the things, again, I try to tell people, if you find yourself with your hope being challenged and
Hmm.
you're kind of struggling with it, sometimes or a lot of times, if you'll look out of yourself, you'll
Hmm.
find that your hope starts to regain and grow when you're helping somebody else. And so you found a way to do that and to help
Hmm.
folks through this Courage to Caregive. And I just so appreciate that you're doing it for the family, that non-paid person. Um,
Hmm. Well, and I have an interest. You brought up hope already, and I know it is a hope-centered podcast, which I always appreciate it. But I think it's worthy of a story here about um, when my brother had clearly lost hope in his journey of mental illness. He did not see a way forward. He was in so much pain, both physically, he had a chronic pain journey at the same time. And so you layer mental illness, serious mental
yeah.
illness, then with chronic pain. And he was told there was nothing that anyone could do for his pain.
Oh
He had to
boy.
learn how to live with the pain. And
Yeah.
that's really difficult. I've had a
Hmm.
chronic pain journey. I know how difficult that is. It's really hard to remain hopeful in that situation. And so as we watched him lose hope slowly, it eroded our hope as well. It eroded our hope as well. And again, we didn't know how to manage those things. One of the reasons why we wanted to start a nonprofit, not because we had the secret sauce or all the answers, but because no one needs to lose hope. As a matter of fact, we do a training on hope. We've dug into the science very deeply of hope. And we like to say that caregivers can be hope givers too.
I
So
like that.
while so while we didn't have the tools 11 years ago to support our brother to find hope again, I do now. And I've made it my personal mission and quest to equip caregivers to be hope givers so that they can do that and illuminate hope with their loved ones. But first and foremost, it has to happen from within. It has to happen from within. And because they've lost hope doesn't mean you need to. And this especially comes into play as I do my suicide prevention trainings monthly, is that a huge part of suicide prevention is supporting someone, and it could be a loved one or it could be a complete stranger, to not give up on hope. And so I'm glad you brought this up early because it's a huge part of what we do um, to support caregivers to find their way back if they've lost it, and then so much so to equip their loved ones.
Well, that was one of the main questions that I wanted to discuss is how Courage caregivers, how that does support someone's hope. So you've started talking about that. I appreciate that. Um, I am going to incorporate what you just said into my presentation about
Okay.
caregiving. Caregivers can be hope givers.
They
Absolutely.
can.
They
They
need to
are.
be hope givers.
Right. No, and that's our work, is to keep them hopeful. Someone said to me early on, you know, you show hope. And again, it was early in my days of losing my brother, and I'm thinking, my story does not end well. I do not feel, you know, we were searching for this so dramatically that in every suicide prevention walk that we do, our team name is called the Team Hope Seekers because we were literally seeking and searching and felt as if we had lost it. And so when someone said that to me the first time, I thought, why? And they said, because you continue to fall down, but you continue to stand up every single time. And so the
Yeah.
fact that you're standing here with confidence and assurance and grace and positivity gives me,
Compassion and empathy and
right, it gives me the hope that
yeah.
I can do the same thing.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I became this like poster child within our small universe here of supporting caregivers, but I didn't see it in myself until people started reflecting back to me. So then I was like, well, wait a second. There's some secret sauce in this. We can equip and empower other caregivers to do this as well.
Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
can do it, you can do it.
And something else we might do that we don't think about very often as a caregiver with someone who's in a terminal or chronic or whatever is we should try to be able to help them rechannel. Maybe
Mm,
what they're hoping for will not come about.
right.
So let's rechannel. Let's don't give up hope.
No.
I tell people until you give up hope, there is
Hmm.
hope. So
Hmm.
don't give it up so freely. Just
Well, and
learn to
yeah.
rechannel it.
And we also talk about realistic hope too.
Yeah, sure,
Um,
sure.
I'm always really careful as I now support two aging parents as well. I don't want them to give up on hope, but I also want them to be realistic about their goals
Yeah.
as well.
in our cancer center, we have patients that are going to be under treatment for the rest of their life, ever how long that is.
Right.
And their caregivers are so wonderful again. But, we create that environment where it's like, I'll see you Wednesday.
Yeah.
You do what you're supposed to because I want you back here Wednesday. We're going to be looking for, we want
Mhm.
to keep that sense of looking forward alive in
Absolutely.
the person. But there's just so many ways. Okay. Wow. You have and are walking that journey. I appreciate that very much. What are some other elements of the courage to caregivers that you kind of focus on? What's something that you're very um, appreciative of or proud of or whatever?
Yeah. Well, I'm proud of all those programs we've launched and successfully been running for 7 years. The prevention groups, which, um, again, focus on preventing that behavioral health disorder within the caregiver.
Okay.
So basically helping them cope and manage the stress of caregiving.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a fun fact. The stress of caregiving has been found scientifically to take 10 years off of a caregiver's life. And while we originally thought we could reduce the stress of caregiving, that means I'd have to come to your house and do the grocery shopping or the cleaning that you were talking about earlier, or I'd have to go to, Susie's house in another place, and that's just not sustainable. And yet what is sustainable, and this is our big aha moment, what is sustainable is equipping you and empowering you to better cope and manage that stress of caregiving. And stress isn't the bad guy. Stress isn't what's killing us. It's our lack of being able to cope and manage that stress that's actually killing us as caregivers. We see lots of caregivers dying before their loved ones because they're not taking care of themselves. So we actually created a curriculum from the outset to build resilience within the caregiver. These are all tools the caregiver, as you well know, as one yourself, you're both a professional caregiver, Dave, and a personal unpaid family caregiver. Um, these are all tools that I can guarantee are in your toolbox. But in a moment of crisis, someone's given a diagnosis. There's a new journey. They can no longer get out of bed, as my dad. There's any number of new crises or challenges that we're faced with as caregivers and loved ones. In that moment, in the moment of crisis, you forget about how well resourced you are. You forget how full your toolbox is. As a matter of fact, I think we have 15 Phillips screwdrivers, yet my husband couldn't find a Phillips screwdriver when he needed it. We have 15. And yet, I need it now. I'm doing this. I need it in this moment. So what we do is we help caregivers in that frenzy of needing that one thing in that moment to be able to dust off that tool and use it and practice it. And that's what our groups are entirely focused on. We focus on, it's not just an open free for all. It's literally, this week we're going to talk about creating your support network. Why is it important to have a support network? Who's on your support team? What are the things they do? Are you good at asking for help or not good at asking for
Mm,
help?
yeah.
Most are not good at asking for help.
Yeah.
How do we practice that? How do we articulate and communicate what we need to those on our support network? So we really dive into a topic, unpack it together, practice it, and we often give them homework and things for them to consider before the next session. So again, not a clinical service, not therapy or counseling in any way, and yet very much this empowerment to use those tools they have, but think about it through the lens of caregiving. And they're like, I hadn't thought about that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. Well, the statistics show that most caregivers are women. So we are as guys, and we're put into that role. And we're the ones who are saying, I do have a dozen Phillips screwdrivers,
Yeah,
and I can't think about which one. Yeah, I love that analogy. Yeah, we don't expect it. And so we may not realize, as you're saying, that we have tools available for us. Yeah. Uh, when you get hit between the eyes with a stressful diagnosis,
yeah,
your mind is focused on that much more.
yes,
Yeah. By the
yeah,
way, part of the presentation I'm putting together absolutely talks about taking care of yourself. I've had several
excellent.
discussions with folks on that. That is so critical.
So
You're no
critical.
good. Somebody called it the uh, put on your mask
the
first.
oxygen mask, right? The flight attendant's message.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and
yeah.
what you may not know, you can use this in your presentation. I'll give it to you because it's not mine. You only have 12 seconds of useful consciousness when they pop down from the ceiling.
Yeah,
And they don't
that's
tell you that
interesting.
because I can guarantee you every time that flight attendant's message, my husband's like, yeah, whatever. Because I can save, he's got the hero. I can save the whole plane, Kristi. And I'm like, but I know better. Put it on because then I've got that 12 seconds. And within that reach of that oxygen mask, I'm going to be more effective to help those around me.
Yeah,
And if he has his seatbelt off and he's trying to help everyone in the whole plane, he's going to get sucked out the hole or whatever the problem
yeah,
is.
yeah,
So he's better off. But some people are like that.
yeah.
So he does see self-care as selfish, and it's a myth. It's not because if you don't take care of yourself,
Hmm.
what would happen? You wouldn't
That's
be
right.
effective to care. You wouldn't be available to care. You provide better care when you care for
And
yourself.
could even be harmful for care. Absolutely. Hey,
100%.
I had a former guest a year or so ago. She suffers from cerebral palsy, is
Mhm.
confined to a wheelchair with a neuropathy and everything.
Mhm.
Kaylee Mycroft is her name. But Kaylee said, in our house, we have a 2-minute rule. If
Mm.
something happens to you, you got 2 minutes to feel sorry for yourself and then suck it up and get busy.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we're caregivers, we're thinking, oh, woe is me, and all this. And it's like, get away from yourself, start looking out, fulfill your job, but take care of yourself. Absolutely.
Yes.
I like that. Yeah. 12 seconds. That's not very much time, but
It's
in the
not.
throw of it, it might actually seem longer than that. Okay. Um, so let's talk about how we could contact your activity if there was a need to, and what kind of resources we can find. I know you have the web page. That's where I went to first.
Mhm. How do they find us? So they can go to the website and they can directly register, which most people, if there's anything a caregiver is really good at, it's finding resources and doing research on the internet. So Google has been our friend. And if they find their way to the website, they can register directly there. It will generate an email that says, thank you for registering. And please be in touch with Jenny, our director of programs, a licensed independent social worker. You'll be invited to set up an appointment for your onboarding. Basically, it's a chance to say, what's hard right now? What are your goals? How can we support you? And she'll help you navigate to the right program that's a fit for you and place you in a group or a one-on-one peer supporter. The other way to do it is you could call. I answer my phone. I am the phone for Courage to Caregivers. Not everybody answers their phone and not everyone answers their messages in a timely manner these days, but I do.
Okay.
And so you can always talk to me and, share what's hard, but you'll still have to talk to Jenny because she's the one who does all the onboarding. It's a really beautiful conversation. What we found, Dave, is that just that first conversation and then the second, if you have called me and talked to Jenny second, immediately gives caregivers a sense of relief. I'm not alone. Somebody else is listening with, 100% of their time and attention, and they're asking about me. Um, you then would be invited to, after you register, we do some onboarding intake impact measurements. That's how we measure the impact of our programs and that we're doing what our funders have asked us to do. And then they can follow us in all the social media places because we bring our curriculum to life, again, with that prevention framework on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. They can join our email mailing list. We do a weekly inspirational email based on our curriculum, meant to, again, inspire you, give you some tools, equip you to stay connected, and a monthly newsletter that's chock full of resources for those topics that month as you build your resilience. Um, and that's how you would reach out to get involved. Our website is full of resources because
Yes, it
sometimes
is.
people just need to like dabble, right? So if you are new to, let's just say, a mental health diagnosis with your loved one, and don't know much about it, we'd likely send you to NAMI first because they are the gold standard for all psychoeducational programming around your loved one's mental illness diagnosis. And yet we do have a one pager of information resources for all of the kind of most common diagnoses on our website. And that's a really great place to start. There's also some of our basic, let's just call it caregiver boot camp, but like those basic caregiver skills of healthy boundaries, active listening, communication, supporting someone with suicidal ideation. There's some of those caregiver essentials also in those one pagers. They're called caregiver information resource sheets. 2 pages of just hot links and lots of resources to give you the tools, things I wished someone had told me as I was caring for my
Yeah,
brother. You
yeah,
really need to understand his diagnosis. Start here. You need to take care of yourself. Start here. So really exploring our website, which might feel like the safest place until you get to know us.
yeah,
And honestly, Dave, and you might have seen this at the center where you volunteer, not everyone's ready to either identify as a caregiver because they're just doing their daughterly, motherly, sisterly duty or being a responsible human. And it's an honor and privilege, which I understand.
yeah.
But learning to identify yourself as that unpaid family caregiver allows us to better support you with the tools and resources to navigate that journey.
It's kind of a mindset
It
that you're
is
trying to help that person
100%.
adapt. Yes, ma'am.
100%.
Yeah. That's great. I did go to the website and I did sign up for the newsletter on your mail list.
Oh, good.
I'm going to go back and visit it, spend a lot more time in it because, again, I discovered on it a wealth of resources. And I will put that contact information in the show notes when I put this podcast together. So
Mhm.
they'll have a link to that. Uh, the the caregiver handout, I looked at it and I appreciate it because it does focus on taking care of yourself as well. Because again, you're just not much good or not as much that you could do if you're not taking care of yourself. You called it caregiver burnout. Yeah. Wow. Hey, you said something else a few minutes ago. I wanted you to touch on, if you would, just briefly.
Yes.
I discovered in my own case that PTSD is a very real thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, and I have not experienced as a caregiver, but I sure experienced it as a patient. And, it's just a very real thing, and we need to
Hmm.
address it and understand it. On
Hmm.
A friend of mine who was also going through cancer, she coined the phrase cancerversary. These are the big dates when things happened, like initial diagnosis or all of these kinds of things. And so we have cancerversaries. And it was during a cancerversary time that I would have these flashbacks and this PTSD. I did not expect it. It was, I mean, I understood it from a military perspective, but never from the other. And I talked to my doctor about it, and he said, you went through a lot. What do you expect? So
Absolutely.
anyway, my charge nurse when I was in the hospital, she said, welcome to the human race.
Right?
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Um, so you do give some information about perhaps how to deal with that as a caregiver.
How to deal with burnout, how to take care of yourself. There's some self-care resources also on the website. Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Anything else you'd like to discuss about this? I just so appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I think, like I said, when my brother lost hope, I had lost hope
Mm,
and I had to find my way back. And as we dug into the science of hope, and both my colleague and I that have done this work together are two very strong women in our faith. Um, and we had to do both the science and the faith part of it because not everyone, as you know well, um, have that faith to hold on to in times where they have lost their way or their journey. Um, and so digging into the science, I think, is more relatable for everyone to realize what are those ways we can share hope or what are ways we can borrow hope when we're feeling hopeless. Because honestly, being hopeless is a clinical red flag and concern that you need
oh
a
yeah.
professional to work with you. So I want to address that. Um, and yet losing your way as I had, was what I needed to get back on track. And so some of the ways we share hope as caregivers, the way we can be hope givers is sharing our story, just like this opportunity. So thank you. Being honest that it's hard, that there are good days and bad days, but being really vulnerable with yourself and each other. It is that common humanity piece that you just mentioned. Listening to others, really active listening
Mm.
to other stories with empathy, openness, non-judgmentally, and letting them know that you're there to receive their concern tells them
I
that door
chuckle
is
when you
open to
said
you.
active listener.
Yeah.
In my military career, I was on staff at the Air Force Non-Commissioned Officer Academy in San Antonio, and I used to teach a section on uh, listening skills, communication skills in general. And in my presentation, I developed what I call the ACT,
Mm,
ACT of
yeah.
listening. And it stands for attend, consider, and then talk.
Yeah.
And so many times in our listening, we run with our thoughts about something and are not really hearing what the person is trying to communicate to us. So that's that
Right.
attending part. That you be there and
Absolutely. Being
yeah,
present.
and then consider what they're saying, maybe why they're
Mhm.
saying it, the emotions involved. And then you can talk intelligently and effectively. So it's the act of listening. So important
Oh,
as a
so
caregiver.
important. So
So,
important. And then, here's where the science comes in. I think that's really important is that hope is this future-oriented mindset that
yes,
says that goals are what drives you moving forward. And when things are hard, when the loved one that you're supporting has lost their way, helping them to set micro goals. And then we learned this in the pandemic to make everything really small and manageable and really find really small micro goals that helps them think about the future in a really fun or playful way and realizing that they have the agency to make it possible. Because again, a lot of our loved ones have lost that. Many caregivers have lost their agency because they feel powerless. So it's owning your agency towards these small micro goals in the future to get you out of today, out of your head, and then realizing that there's lots of pathways to that goal, not just one,
yeah,
many, many, many pathways,
yeah.
and realizing that you may have to repivot, repathway to get your way to that goal. And it's learning to just never, ever, ever give up. If one way doesn't work, there'll be another way. Let's think about it
Redirect
and do
it.
it
That's right.
together.
Yes,
And so
ma'am.
really thinking about this in a very practical, future-oriented mindset, um, of course, it makes it difficult when people have a story of trauma. It becomes a little more difficult, but it's never impossible. Um, and we can, again, teach hope by being present, by being gentle with ourselves. I don't have to have all the answers, and I'm certainly not going to be able to fix you, but by being present and listening, I can,
Yeah.
and being both compassionate with others, my loved ones, but being just as compassionate with myself. So again, starting with myself, and then finding ways to find gratitude, building a gratitude practice, finding your spiritual practice again if you've lost your way there. It's kind of those essentials to mental health, which is proper nutrition, hydration, movement, and that breathing meditation I mentioned has been a lifesaver for me, I know. But as we encourage others, we do truly become hope givers, whether we see it or not. It might be already doing it.
You made a statement a little while ago that's a mantra of mine. No one walks alone. Well, thank you. I so
Yes,
appreciate it. I truly, truly do. So I'll go ahead and wrap up again.
no
Okay.
problem.
Friends, thank you for joining Kristi and I as together we journey to hope. I trust in some small way we have encouraged you to discover, sustain, or regain hope through this effort. I invite you to contact me if you have any questions or comments, or if you wish to share with me something that you've experienced in your journey to hope. My email is info@ourjourneytohope.com. That's info at ourjourneytohope.com. And please share this podcast with someone whose hope is being challenged. And I want to put a little extra plug here. If you're a caregiver and you feel your hope is challenged, you need to visit couragetocaregivers.org and learn that you are not alone. Well, I look forward to sharing more with you soon. Again, I'm Dr. Dave Layton, and thank you for listening. And until our next episode, remember, we give all glory to God our Father.